Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting of April 28, 2025 on this beautiful federal election day. As we have quorum present for today's meeting, I would like to call this meeting to order. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. And before we continue today, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the heartbreaking tragedy in Vancouver where 11 innocent lives were lost during the Lapu Lapu Day Festival. To the Filipino community in Vancouver and to nearly 10,000 Filipino Canadians right here in Hamilton, please know that we stand with you in your grief. Your loss is felt deeply across our city. And on behalf of Ward 5 and the City of Hamilton, I offer our sincere condolences to those impacted. And in light of this tragedy, I intend to work closely with Acting General Manager Jackie Kennedy to explore steps that we can take to enhance safety at our own local events, to better protect all residents and ensure our community gatherings remain safe spaces for everyone. And with that, I will now get an approval of the agenda. May I please get a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as presented? Councillor McMeekin, seconded by Councillor Beattie. Show of hands. Oh, sorry, we got a speakers list to this.
Thank you, Chair. My apologies for not hitting the button in time. I'm just looking for some guidance with respect to the agenda. There's an information item, 7.2, but I also see a motion, which I understand permission will be sought to waive the rules. I'm trying to understand if I can allude to the report during the time of the motion.
I think that'd be appropriate, yes. Check with the clerk. That seems like it's in line.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else speaking to the approval of the agenda? Not seeing anyone. Show of hands. And that carries unanimously. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. May I please have a mover and seconder to adopt the previous minutes? Moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Taddison. Show of hands. And that carries. Items for information. May I please have a mover and seconder to put the following items for information on the floor? 7.1, 2024 year-end report on community bookings at Hamilton Stadium. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Nance starting it off here.
Thank you, and I apologize for not indicating through eScribe. Through you, Vice Chair, appreciating staff in getting this report on the agenda. It's an annual one. It's a good news story. It's fantastic to see our community use of the stadium and the field go up substantially over the last 4 years, if not 5. And some highlights being 1,100 hours per year being used by community in terms of both the field as well as the meeting rooms that are available inside the large facility. So first off, just a big thank you to all the staff at the stadium and the staff in facilities for your efforts not only to track and proactively address requests for more community use of the field and additional facility rooms, but also from the perspective of addressing the community concerns as it related to lighting, noise, and other issues like that in our ongoing liaison that happens there with the local community. Through you, Vice Chair, the one question that I do have is kind of nuancing out a little bit about the school use. And if you could speak a little bit about, is the school use embedded inside of the community use hours? And how could we get that information delineated a little bit? Anything you could share, please.
Through the chair, members of council, good afternoon. Rob Gatto, Manager of Sports and Entertainment Facilities. Councillor Nan. So Bernie Custis High School and our facility booking coordinator worked together. And in 2024, Bernie Custis had 400 allotted hours. So, and then throughout the year, they do cancel, but the canceled, the hours were 220 hours booked, and that is embedded in the 1,100 hours.
Great, thank you. And through you, Vice Chair, it's my understanding that representatives from the school board at the School Board Liaison Committee that our colleagues to both sides of me serve on are interested in some of that information and being able to continue working with city staff to address the community use, specifically school use of the field. I'm wondering through you if it makes sense to, I want to receive the report here today. This is public information. Anything preventing staff from being able to go to that liaison committee and share this information further? I can turn to my colleague to find out when the next meeting is happening, but I just wanted to confirm that that can get on the agenda for the next liaison committee.
Yeah, I think that's in line. And do we have, I'll ask the members that are sitting on the HWDSB Liaison Committee Board, do we know when that next meeting would be, when we can have that discussion? 1 moment. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. Sorry, not sorry.
June 26th. Yes, Chair, the HWDSB Liaison Committee will be meeting next on June 26th, 1 p.m. And as the Vice Chair, co-Vice Chair of the committee, I'd be happy to reach out both to Councillor Dan and to Manager Gatto and the LC for that committee to ensure that everybody's properly invited and look forward to having a robust conversation there.
Perfect, thanks. Councillor Beatty, is that satisfactory, Councillor Dan?
Yep, very
Perfect.
good. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thanks so much. I'm not seeing any further speakers to this, so I do have a question myself. I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Kassar.
Go ahead.
First question, and this may not be totally related to the report, but I keep reading Hamilton Stadium, Hamilton Stadium. I just want a progress update. My residents are wondering if there's any progress update with the name change of the stadium.
Through the chair and members of council, to date, there's no update on that. I know that our partners, Hamilton Sports Group, got active conversations with potential sponsors.
Oh, thank you. I've always called it Iverwin all along, but, and I'll continue to do that. But anyways, Hamilton Stadium, it is officially for now. And through you, Chair, I've received a number of concerns from user groups about the way our policies are being applied at our cities. And a lot of folks might not know this, but this is the city's only turf facility that can accommodate football or rugby. And I'll highlight a few examples that have been brought to my attention, like the charging of change room fees when other facilities don't. Arenas, when you book an arena, you don't have to charge, you don't have to pay for that change room fee, which you do at Hamilton Stadium. Limited rental flexibility for nonprofits, security costs that seem tied to alcohol sales than the event itself. But really, these examples point to a broader concern about fairness and accessibility at a city-owned facility. Could staff speak to the bigger picture here and whether there's an opportunity to revisit these policies to better support these user groups that rely on this space? Through you, Chair.
Through the chair and members of council. So with having two professional organizations at Hamilton Stadium and the various user groups that do request time, at times it is difficult to fit everyone in, every user group. We explore every avenue we can for room booking spaces. So you could imagine, right, to try to book all these groups in and to work around our two professional teams, the non-for-profit. These user fees are approved by City Council. They're part of the user fees that do go in every fall, I believe October. Again, we could look at that in the future, but, you know, running a facility of this magnitude, you could understand our operating costs to try to be at net zero in budget time. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So would you, I guess you would describe then the operating costs of such a large stadium would be the reason for the discrepancy of how we treat this stadium, which is a taxpayer-funded stadium, as opposed to any of the arenas or other facilities that we have throughout the city of Hamilton? Because it does seem like a little bit of double dipping is going on here when you have, you've already got staff on site, you know, they're already employed to be there for these events, and then you're charging them to clean the change rooms when normally that's something that's already tied in with all of our other bookings for all of our other facilities. So I just want to see, through you, Chair, if that's something that can be addressed maybe equitably.
Through the chair, members of council, absolutely, this is something we could take away and look at how we could facilitate this to the user groups.
Okay. Thank you. And my second question just being, given the fact that this is the city's only turf field, I know there's other turf fields at the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board and the Catholic Board. Those come with tremendous challenges, I know that. They're not easily accessible, change rooms are not easy to get to. So this really is the hub of all football in Hamilton, all rugby in Hamilton when it comes to turf fields. When a team goes to book an event, having a team come in, drive in from Ottawa, they drive in from Windsor, where have you, long distances, and they have to play at Russ Jackson Field, for example, or Mohawk Sports Park, which are fantastic facilities. But when they come in and a lightning storm starts, rainstorm, it gets canceled. And if it's on a turf field, it doesn't get canceled because our policies allow the playing of games to happen on turf fields in rain events. I'm just wondering, is there any plans to maybe add another turf field in the city of Hamilton?
Through the chair and members of council, that's something that would have to be brought forward because there's a few stakeholders that would be involved. Cynthia Graham's group, you know, which environmental services, parks, and other stakeholders.
Through the chair, Cynthia Graham, Director of Environmental Services. We do have a planned artificial turf field at the future Brightside Park, which would include change rooms. As well, we are reviewing opportunities for other higher level sports amenities citywide, looking at particularly the space still available at Heritage Green Park, looking at the Mohawk Sports Park Master Plan, as well as future Fruitland Winona Park opportunities, and working with our recreation team. We do consider the overall city needs when planning out what amenities go where.
I appreciate that. For me, I just see it as a shortcoming that could be easily addressed, and look forward to having those future conversations offline with you. So I'll take the chair back from you. Thanks, Councillor Cassar. We've got one more speaker here. Councillor McMeekin, go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Out of my field, I hadn't expected to speak in response, but let me do that. I want to compliment the staff straight up for the sensitivity that was used around the rental of the arena up in Carlisle recently for the Optimist Club Community Breakfast. Initially, it started out with the irony of here's a club that raised the money and built the arena who couldn't afford to rent the room to hold the community breakfast because the fee was so high. But staff in there, with having been made aware of that, sensitively adjusted the rate so that that event was able to happen, and to ultimately the benefit of several community groups. So thank you, staff, for that. That's good work, and you know, we need to be focused on things like that. You know, when somebody builds something which then becomes a city asset, you know, and can't rent the facility, you know, we need to make allowance for that, and they did so, and I'm really pleased and with the staff response. Thanks.
I appreciate that, Councillor McMeekin. Seeing no further speakers of this, no, I haven't moved and seconded this. Do I have a mover and seconder? Did I get a mover and seconder? No, I haven't. Mover and seconder, Councillor Nan, Councillor Wang, please. I think this is this a show of hand? What is information? Yeah, show of hands. And that carries unanimously. 7.2, 20 Road East Water Service Extension, outstanding business list item. Is there any discussion on this item? I see Councillor Wilson. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would kindly ask if staff could give an overview, just so to ensure that I understand that which is set out in the information report, or confirm what I think it says. This is an information report that was requested of council about the policy parameters or permissions that would be required, if any, to enable a private residence to hook into the existing municipal water service system. That information report says that the property in question resides outside the city's urban boundary, and the situation does not meet any of the criteria set out in the provincial policy statement, and therefore a hook into that system would not be consistent with the provincial policy statement. And secondly, this request is not in keeping with any of the conditions set out in our own rural official plan. Could I have a confirmation of whether I've got that right, or any addition that staff would like to make? Thank you.
Through the, through the chair, Mark Bainbridge, Director of Planning and Capital for Hamilton Water, but this afternoon acting for Nick Winters as the Hamilton Water Director. Yes, Councillor, from my perspective, your perspective is accurate, but I might ask Shane if he has any additional commentary to provide additional context if he thinks there's anything important there.
Good afternoon, Shane McCauley, Director of Wastewater Operations. You're correct, the report does outline the requirements for, in order to connect outside the rural boundary. Our planning staff are also here that can speak to the policy aspect of that.
May I have that overview by planning staff, please? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Melanie Pham, Acting Manager of Sustainable Communities within the Planning Division. Through the chair to the councillor, yes, that's correct. Based on our policy review, the extension does not meet the policies of the provincial policy statement and the Rural Hamilton official plan. Therefore, we have stated in the report that normally an official plan amendment would be required for that situation.
Thank you. Through the chair, this is kind of the dilemma that I'm in. Because we don't have anything on the floor, I'll speak in generalities then. Because the permissions are not met, and if the resident wished to, I think you said, seek to the service extension regardless, I want to make sure I understand. The briefing stated that the onus would be on the resident to seek an official plan amendment, which we already know does not meet the provincial policy statement. I just want to ensure that I know where the carriage of action resides. Thank you. Through the chair.
Through the chair, I think this relates more to the motion. So I don't know if it's appropriate to comment on that at this time, but yes, so the motion is essentially proposing that the official plan amendment process, that it not occur, and that staff would be directed essentially to require or to facilitate the hookup.
Chair, I don't want to put staff in a position where they're having to answer details on a motion that's not yet on the floor, and I appreciate the answers thus far. I'll continue my questions so I fully understand this issue and any implications when we get to that point. Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Cratch is up next, please.
Thanks, and Councillor Wilson asked some of the questions I was interested in knowing more about.
when I look here at on page 4 of 6, I see there are technical considerations. And so I just want to understand that these technical considerations are here if an official plan amendment was put on the floor. If we bypass the official plan amendment process, I'm assuming these technical considerations also fly out the window. Could you explain to me a bit about that? Because it seems like these things would be considered as part of an official plan amendment. So I'm just trying to make sure that I understand that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there would definitely be technical considerations that would have to be evaluated in order to make sure that service would not impact other parts of our system. But generally speaking, this is one address, and there are services close by. I might also, again, offer the opportunity for Shane to comment if there's anything addition to my preliminary comments there.
Thank you very much, Mark. Again, through the chair, this report really highlighted two areas. One, what was the policy requirements in order to extend outside the urban boundary? And if those requirements were made or bypassed, then what would be the technical aspects from a water quality standpoint? And so that's what these points are to address. There's currently a water service line there that's servicing 4 properties. It's 38 millimeter, so 1.5 inches in diameter. If someone else was to hook up to that, then there might not be sufficient supply, depending on the draw from the other home. If you were to run a dedicated service that length from the 200 millimeter main to the property, you may have stagnant water in that service because it's just not being turned over far enough, quick enough because of the length of that service line. And so that's the purpose of these technical requirements. They will remain. They are still, whether or not there's an amendment, these are still the technical requirements.
So if I understand you correctly, the only real distinction or difference between these two processes, one being with respect to the official plan amendment being put forward by the property owner, would be the public part of this process, I presume. But what you're saying is that the diligence required with respect to the technical considerations will happen no matter what, because there's a requirement by Water Wastewater Division to make sure that those things are considered. Is that my understanding?
Through the chair, you're correct.
Okay, so it's the public component of this. Thanks. That was helpful because I read some of these technical considerations, and of course, some of them are rather concerning about water stagnation and water pressure and these kinds of things. So I wanted to have a better understanding of the context. At this point, I don't think I have any further questions. I'll save the rest of my comments for the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kretsch. Next up, we've got Councillor Taddison.
I just wanted to thank Director Winters and Director McCauley for meeting with myself and their willingness to explore this and their willingness to understand the circumstances and put the technical requirements out there so that I could move the motion forward later. Thank you.
Great. Not seeing any further speakers to this, so I'll have a vote by show of hands to receive this item. Mover and seconder. Sorry, didn't do that at the beginning. Councillor Wang and any other takers? Councillor Beatty, show of hands. And that carries unanimously. All right, moving on to number 8, public hearings, 8.1. Proposed permanent closure and sale of a portion of untraveled road allowance abutting 302 concession 14 East Flamborough as required under the city's bylaw number 14-204, a public meeting is required. Notice of this public meeting was provided and posted on the City of Hamilton's website. The notice advised that anyone whose lands are prejudicially affected may appear before the committee. The clerk has advised that no individuals have pre-registered to delegate. Are there any members of the public wishing to address committee? For a second time, are there any members of the public who wish to come forward to speak to this matter? And for a third and final time, are there any members of the public who wish to come forward to speak to this matter? Seeing none, and we'll have a show of hands to receive the delegations. Sorry, that's on my roadmap. I'm just reading it as it's okay. And so I'll have a mover and seconder to close the public meeting then. Ghost delegate, we had a ghost here. Counselor McMeekin and Counselor Wang. And this will require an electronic vote.
Councillor Pauls, are you able to vote? Thank you.
I did.
And that carries 13-0. On the report, may I please have a mover and seconder to approve the report? Counselor McMeekin and Counselor Wang. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, we will require an electronic vote for this as well. The vote is up. And that carries 13-0. Items for consideration, 9.1, PW 25017, water meter contract extension. May I please have a mover and seconder to put the report on the floor? And moved by Counselor Beatty, seconded by Counselor Wang. Any discussion here? Seeing no discussion, and we will take that electronic vote. Vote is up. And that vote carries 13-0. 9.2, accessible transportation services performance report frequency. May I please have a mover and seconder to receive the presentation and approve the recommendations in the report. Mover and seconder. Counselor Kassar, Counselor Wang. Is there any discussion here? Seeing none, we will take the electronic vote on 9.2. Vote is up. And that carries 13-0. 9.3, amendments to the outstanding business list. May I please have a mover and seconder to approve the amendments to the outstanding business list? Moved by Counselor Kretsch, second by Counselor Wang. Any discussion to this? Seeing none, we'll take the electronic vote. Vote is up. That carries 13-0. Moving on to motions. 10.1, pathway pedestrian lighting improvements in Corktown Park, 175 Ferguson Avenue South, Hamilton Ward 2. Councillor Kretsch, would you like to introduce your motion? I understand Councillor Nan will be your seconder.
Indeed. And so thanks very much to Councillor Nan for seconding this. Very short story here is that we need to improve some of the lighting in Corktown Park. For those who do or don't know, Corktown Park is a vital connection on the Escarpment Rail Trail and also connects to other parts of Ward 2. And so that's where Ward 2 and 3 kind of connect in its most pedestrian form and kind of a park space. And we need to have some additional lighting there. And so this motion allows that to happen. And it's funded from the Ward 2 Area Rating Reserve Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Not seeing any discussion on this, so we'll take the electronic vote. Vote is up. And that vote carries 13-0. 10.2, water drinking fountain program enhancements and improvements in Ward 2, parks and public spaces, Ward 2. Councillor Kretsch, would you like to introduce your motion? I understand in this motion, Councillor Wang is your seconder.
Indeed, Councillor Wang is my seconder. Thanks. And this is similarly pretty straightforward. There are not, as it turns out, and I've known this for a long time, and I think many Ward 2 residents have known, either not drinking water fountains in some of our parks or public spaces that are green, or enhanced water fountains in those spaces. And so, there's different kinds of water fountains. We have some that have just press drink, some that have water fill-up stations, and these spaces are used by many, many, many pedestrians and park users in our city, and so want to make sure that they're upgraded. And so this is that motion to allow that to happen. And it's worded in such a way so that if we get to a place and we figure out, we wanted to put this kind of thing in and can't, there's a bit of flexibility here so we can ensure that all the spaces in Ward 2 have access to drinking water. It's our downtown area. It's also the place where the most urban heat impacts happen in our city. And so in the warmer months, it's much warmer here than it is in other parts of our city. And so this access to water is really important. So thanks for your support, Councillor Huang.
Thanks, Councillor. Not seeing any discussion on this, so we'll take the electronic vote. It's on item 10.2. The vote is up. That vote carries 13-0. 10.3, Bernie Arbor Sports Field Lighting, Mohawk Sports Park, 1100 Mohawk Road East, Hamilton, Ward 6. Councillor Jackson, would you like to introduce your motion? I understand that Councillor Spatafora will be your seconder.
That is correct, Vice Chair Francis, and good afternoon. Moved by myself, seconded by Ward 14 Councillor Mike Spatafora. Bernie Arbor Sports Field Lighting. Whereas Mohawk Sports Park at 1100 Mohawk Road East is home to the Bernie Arbor Sports Field and Stadium, a unique sport amenity supporting competitive baseball in Hamilton, whereas the sport asset is supported by sport lighting, which increases the use of the asset, allowing even for evening play, and additionally supports the competitive league programming of this field, whereas the sport lighting has reached its end-of-life, useful life program and is in need of replacement, whereas the replacement lighting will include service supply replacements, new footings, poles, fixtures, and standalone controls separated from the stadium structure. And finally, whereas additional funding to support the replacement of the sport lighting is needed to fill the capital funding gap, therefore be resolved, A, that Bernie Arbor Sports Field Lighting replacement located at that address be funded from my Ward 6 Capital Reinvestment Reserve, number noted, at an upset limit including contingency not to exceed $530,000 be approved, and B, that the General Manager, Public Works, or designate be authorized directed to approve, execute any and all required agreements and ancillary documents with such terms and conditions in a form satisfactory to the city solicitor related to Bernie Arbor Sports Field Lighting at Mohawk Sports Park. And if I might just say, Vice Chair Francis, over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been grateful to facilities, primarily manager Rob Gatto, who has done his best working in conjunction with parks and landscape architects, environmental services, to at least tether the lights and the light poles, to at least try to get their lifespan extended one more season, but we finally have reached that point where it is end of life, and I'm very concerned, as is staff, that this may create some dangerous situation, God forbid, if anything were to collapse or fall. So staff had put aside some reserve funds, but it obviously wasn't enough to get the project moving this year. And I want to thank Senior Project Manager Andrea McDonald and her director, Cynthia Graham, for working with me and working with the new Cardinals ownership. Eric Spearin, who's come back from California a couple of years ago, bought the club, and he's really done a great job increasing attendance to 1,500 to 2,000 a game now, whereas before they used to have just a few hundred per game. So all around, it's increased the popularity of baseball and the fans that are coming out. And I want to make sure, because this is a city-owned facility, that we're doing our best to maintain its quality and proper condition and state of care. So again, and also want to thank Elsie McIntosh. She always helps me with the language in my motion to make sure it's accurate. So Vice Chair Francis, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Spatafora. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Jackson. Seeing no speakers to this, so we will take that electronic vote. Vote is up. And that vote carries 13 to nothing. 10.4, citizen committee input for Carlisle Road and Center Road intersection improvements, Ward 15. Councillor McMeekin, would you like to introduce your motion, and do you have a seconder?
I do. Councillor Spatafora has agreed to second the motion. In fact, he was instrumental in sort of guiding direction here because he did a similar motion on a capital project in his ward. I'll read it quickly because it's important. Whereas public engagement, accountability, transparency, and community input are essential principles in the planning and implementing of capital projects to ensure they meet the needs and priorities of residents. Whereas the Transportation Division completed an evaluation for a potential traffic control signal at Carlisle Road and Center Road, which was determined to be warranted. Whereas project, and there's some numbers there, was approved in the 2024 capital budget to fund the construction of a new traffic signal at the intersection at a budget cost of $400,000. Whereas the Ward 15 office was contacted by a significant number of residents, over 300 by the way, who live in the Carlisle community, that voiced their concerns about the installation of the traffic signal that focused around preserving the established character and identity of the community. And whereas the Transportation Division has committed to deferring construction to 2026 to allow for a review of the intersection's needs, ensuring that the project aligns with the community's vision for Carlisle while maintaining the project's primary focus of public safety. Therefore, be it resolved that the Transportation Division collaborate with Ward 15 office through the formalization of a citizens committee with representation from relevant stakeholders to review and provide input on the scope and design of the Carlisle Road and Center Road intersection, and that upon the completion of the citizen-focused collaborative review, the intersection design incorporate reasonable revisions that complement the existing community character and identity, enabling construction, whatever that's due to be, to proceed in 2026.
Great. Thank you for your introducing that. Not seeing any speakers to this. It's been moved and seconded. We'll have that electronic vote. Vote is up. Sure.
I just want to thank Director Rael personally for her willingness to talk with some of our citizens and our office and to help facilitate this study of alternatives. Thank you, Director.
Great. Well said. We'll have that vote now. Vote's back up. And that carries 13-0. Motion number 10.5, road safety, Bonetto Elementary School, safe route to school, and Bishops Park access enhancements in Ward 3. Councillor Nan, would you like to introduce your motion, and do you have a seconder?
Yes, I do. My seconder is Councillor Crutch, as both neighborhoods and initiatives border Ward 2. And therefore be it resolved is that the Transportation Division advance the design and construction of controlled crossings on Victoria Avenue North and Wellington Street North that would enable the safe crossing of students attending Bonetto Elementary School and include a 2026 capital budget submission to enable a 2026 construction. B, that Transportation Division review opportunities to improve safety and access to Bishop Park through the intersection of East Avenue South and Hunter Street East and implement meaningful and cost-effective traffic calming measures in 2025, funded from the Ward 3 Capital Reinvestment Reserve 108053 at an upset limit, including contingencies not to exceed $20,000, and that the GM of Public Works or designate be authorized and directed to approve and execute any of the required agreements and documents satisfactory in a form that's satisfactory to our city solicitor. If I could, just in way of recognition of long-term community advocacy on the part of residents who live in the Keith neighborhood, who've been repeatedly flagging their desire to be able to participate in active transportation to get to their local elementary school, which is Bonetto Elementary School in Ward 2, that in order for them to be able to do that, they have to cross two very busy streets, Victoria Avenue and Wellington. And there's no crosswalks there. There's a railroad nearby. There's all kinds of obstacles that prevent children from being able to walk there. And currently, we have a lot of children that then have to opt into a bus route. That bus route recently was compromised in terms of an accident where a child was struck and critically injured. Our staff are working closely with the school board and to ensure that that bus route is one that is safe access for students, but also in terms of loading and waiting areas. Nonetheless, this portion of the motion is to deal specifically with getting those crosswalks in, and with thanks to staff in transportation planning as well as in roads for your support in getting this motion to the table. The second part is about the Stinson area, where Bishop Park is the only pocket of respite and green space in an already densely populated area. My office continues to hear from families about their concerns for road safety to cross the intersection and get to the park safely. And we've been holding public meetings and community meetings last year with park staff to look at ways to reinvigorate the green space. So as that work is getting on the docket, I want to make sure that we have the road safety in place prior to the enhancement so we can begin impacting driver behavior well before the park is enhanced and more children make their way towards it. So big thanks to all the staff team. I think we're working with 3 or 4 different divisions within Public Works to move. Sounds like only $20,000, but significant uplift to our community. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Nan. We've got a speakers list started here. Councillor Kretsch, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Very briefly, I think it's a really important motion, and I'm glad Councillor Nan passed it. I couldn't do that because, of course, Victoria Street is in Victoria Avenue, pardon me, is in Ward 3, and so it's important because we have those vital connections. This is part of a process we're using for a few other places around Ward 2, including students trying to get to Dr. Davies School across Cannon Street. And I'll always say this about the crossing guard there, as far as I'm concerned, as a local hero. Every time they have to stop traffic on Cannon Street to let kids pass across there from Elgin, and so we're going to be also at some point in the near future putting that infrastructure in. And this is part of just, again, trying to improve the infrastructure around schools and part of the work being done with the daily school route folks, those who are studying right now the entire Wilson Street around Dr. Davies School. This has been a big area of concern for many people. We're also eventually going to be trying to help on Burlington Street. And so for those who don't know, many families live north of Burlington Street and in Ward 2 have to cross that street to get there, but there aren't that many places to cross, especially at the smaller arterials there. So we're going to be trying to put in more traffic calming on Wellington Street. This is just part of that larger program. So thanks very much to Councillor Nan for contributing to it.
Great. Not seeing any further speakers to this, so we will take the electronic vote. The vote is up. And that carries 13-0. Moving on to motion 10.6, complete streets review implementation investment. Councillor Nam, would you like to introduce your motion, and do you have a seconder for this one?
Certainly, and my seconder is Councillor Huang. And that therefore be it resolved is to support the implementation of the outstanding Ward 3 Complete Streets recommendations be funded from the Ward 3 Capital Reinvestment Reserve 108053 at an upset limit, including contingencies not to exceed $200,000, with budget added to the existing capital project number 4242209302 for a total budget of $650,000, and that the general manager of Public Works and designate, you all know what that means. So this is, through you, Chair, a continuation of the Ward 3 Complete Streets recommendations. We've already succeeded in implementing all of the short-term measures. This is moving us towards the midterm measures, and and then we'll get eventually to those longer-term, larger investments that really do deal with a lot more redesign of the roadway, a lot more infrastructure. So this mid-grade is going to be quite significant. This is focused on neighborhood roads specifically. This does not include arterials. This does not include collectors. This is about making sure that those roads where folks have been driving way too fast that prevent our residents from being able to enjoy a quality of life in the lower city and in Ward 3 specifically, that we are addressing that by shifting driver behavior and doing so through roadway design and enhancement. If I could, through you, just for the public record, ask Director Rael if she could please speak a little bit to those midterm enhancements that this motion will be covering off. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Carolyn Ryle, Director of Transportation. So thank you, Councillor, for the question. So we've been working very closely with the Ward Office on a number of traffic calming related measures as it relates to the Complete Street study that was quite extensive that we did. She made mention that we did complete 115 short-term recommendations, and we are moving into about 100 medium to long-term recommendations as part of the next phase of this. We're looking to be doing projects that involve planning as well as minor reconstructive work, such as raised crosswalks, curb extensions and bump outs, narrowing of lanes. So that's the extent with a little bit more of a reconstruction element focus now that we move into medium and long term.
Thank you so much, Director, and that's it.
Great. That's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further speakers to this, so we'll have the vote on 10.6. Vote is up. And that carries 12-0. 10.7, enhancing public outdoor green space and playground areas at Prince of Wales Elementary School. Councillor Nan, would you like to introduce your motion and your seconder, please?
Certainly. My seconder is Councillor Taddison. And this one I am going to take the moment to read it out. Whereas improving public outdoor green spaces and playgrounds helps to strengthen and build community-based opportunities for all. And whereas the outdoor green space and playground area at Prince of Wales Elementary School, located at 77 Melrose Avenue North, has been found to have significant asset deficiencies identified by students, parent council members, and verified by the school administration that could be maximized for better use by children, youth, and the public. And whereas the Ward 3 Councillor's Office has worked with the Parent Council, Prince of Wales Elementary School Administration, Hamilton Wentworth District School Board Trustee, and staff to identify a preferred scope of plan to address local needs. And whereas the city landscape architectural staff provided advice to the above group on those aspects that ought to be considered for adequate scope of work. And whereas HWDSB staff have finalized a scope of work within their organizational policies and frameworks, and whereas HWDSB does not have the adequate capital funds to address the community's interest and needs for this outdoor green space and playground at Prince of Wales Elementary School that enables timely implementation of solutions, therefore be it resolved that the revitalization of Prince of Wales Elementary School outdoor green space and playground area be funded from the Ward 3 Capital Reinvestment Reserve 108053 at an upset limit of including contingencies not to exceed $250,000 be approved. B, that council direct city staff to work in conjunction with HWDSB staff to create a development agreement that considers all costs associated with redevelopment of the Prince of Wales Elementary School outdoor space, and C, the general manager and the standard language there. If I can, through you, this has been years in the making. For those of you who don't know where Prince of Wales Elementary School is, it's in the stadium precinct. It's the tiny little elementary school that's right beside the stadium when folks go in through the statue side on Melrose. And if you've been out there, you know after school hours that that playground is well loved and utilized by the local community as well as the students who go to the school during the day. However, it is the smallest green space that exists for a public school. I would argue probably in the entire city, though I don't have the stats in front of me. And in order to work with what we have, this $250, though municipal investment, is actually going to enhance public access to the outdoor space. It's also going to help us with our canopy targets. There's an opportunity here to depave. There's an opportunity here to bring in some pollinator species. there's an opportunity here to make sure that the little bit of space that is out there for the children is more appropriate for their school use, but also more appropriate for community use outside of regular school hours. Thank you. Oh, my seconder is, I already mentioned, Councillor Tattison.
Great, thanks, Councillor Nan. So that's been moved and seconded. I don't see any speakers to this, so we will have the vote on 10.7. Vote is up.
Councillor Spatafora, are you able to vote?
And that carries 12-0. Moving on to notice of motions, 11.1, stop controls at the intersection of Elliott Avenue and Grenadier Drive in Ward 6. Councillor Jackson, please introduce your notice of motion, and will you be seeking to suspend the rules?
Vice Chair Francis, I will. So through you to LC McIntosh, the notice of motion is here. Should I read that out first or read the waiving of the rules first, please? Waiving of the rules first? Okay. Thank you, LC McIntosh. Vice Chair Francis, moved by myself, seconded by Ward 10 Councillor Jeff Beattie, that the rules of order be suspended to allow for the introduction of a motion respecting stop controls at the intersection of Elliott Avenue and Grenadier Drive.
Okay, so the request to suspend the rules has been moved. We got a speaker to this?
Yes,
Councillor
I'm
Wang?
sorry. I would just
That's
like
okay.
to understand the urgency of this.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Huang. I was going to wait if the rules were waived, but more appropriate to explain now. This request came in from the community to my office last fall. And typically, Councillor Huang, through you, Vice Chair Francis, if this was a month or two, or even 3, waiting for a result from Traffic Department on behalf of my community, I wouldn't even bother committee today with requesting waiving the rules. I would have waited the normal 2 weeks under a notice of motion. My community has waited over 5 months, no fault of anyone's. Staff have been very busy. Winter, 3 major storms wouldn't allow them at times to put the traffic counts down on the roadways. They've been extremely busy as well. And so my community, when the report came through after 5 months of waiting, I simply asked my community I shouldn't get to the recommendations, sorry. I'll hold that off until to see whether I have support for waiving the rules. But that's the reason why. They've waited over 5 months, and it's an intersection that has had 2 major rollovers in the last 6 months. And so that's why I'm looking to waive the rules. Otherwise, normally, I would wait the normal 2 weeks. Vice Chair Francis, thank you.
Satisfied? Okay. Sounds good. So that's been moved and seconded. We will have the vote on waiving the rules. Vote is up. That carries 13-0. On the motion now, Councillor Jackson, please introduce your motion, and is Councillor Beattie your seconder for this as well?
He is as well. Thank you, Vice Chair Francis. Moved by myself, seconded by Ward 10, Councillor Jeff Beattie. And I should have also mentioned Councillor Huang, cybersecurity as well, delayed a lot of traffic department studies for issues like this. Whereas the City of Hamilton is committed to creating safe neighborhoods, vibrant communities, whereas there is existing stop sign on Grenadier Drive but not on Elliott, whereas the Transportation Division completed a study determined that an always stop is not justified based on their criteria defined within the Ontario Traffic Manual Book 5 regulatory signs, whereas this request was initiated by residents in proximity to the intersection expressing their concerns to my office, and finally, whereas signatures were collected from 103 residents representing households in close proximity to the intersection of Elliott and Grenadier in support of the installation of the always stop, therefore be it resolved that Transportation Division be authorized directed to convert the intersection of Elliott Grenadier in my ward to an always stop, and Schedule 5 of the traffic bylaw number 01-215 be amended accordingly. Just to elaborate further, Vice Chair Francis, I want to thank sincerely Manager Mike Field and Director Carolyn Ryall, who did their very best, given all the conditions and circumstances they were dealing with, to get me a final answer near the end of March. Obviously, I was hoping that it would be a favorable response. I respect their professionalism enormously. This is one of those tricky ones where I respect the professionalism of staff so much, and upon receiving their recommendation not warranted, I took it to the community. And an organizer of a petition, Roberta Watt, who lives right in the vicinity of the intersection within one weekend, garnered 103 names, indicating to me the severity and the concern of the young families and parents in that area with many kids. And I had told my colleagues a few days in advance that I would be bringing this notice of motion, and that I had a couple of pictures sent to me within the last 6 months of two serious, not just intersection collisions, literally two rollovers, and the community just needs a peace of mind. And this is why I'm bringing it forward on their behalf, and I'm hoping to get committee support, again, with the utmost respect to professional staff. Thank you, Vice Chair Francis.
Thanks, Councillor Jackson. And we've got Councillor Kretsch first up on the speakers list. Go ahead.
Thanks very much, and thanks, Councillor Jackson, for all that background information. Can I understand a little bit more about the warranted, the non-warranted nature of this requested safety enhancement? We all have to at times bring forward things that we disagree with staff in terms of their professional opinions with respect to localized community safety improvements. What I guess I'm wondering about is if that's anything to do with the 85th percentile with respect to speed. And so did that have a factor? What other factors were here? And then I have one follow-up question.
Director?
Through the chair, Carolyn Ryle, Director of Transportation. So I can start with the question, Councillor, and then I'll pass it over to Manager Mike Field, whose team did the analysis. So in following the OTM Book 5 regulatory signage warrant that we would be looking at in regards to this, there's a number of factors that we look at. We look at the number of vehicles. We look at right angle potential collisions, pedestrians in the air, so a whole host of things. I don't believe we look at speeds of volumes, but I'm happy for Manager Mike Field to confirm if we do or we do not as part of that.
Through the chair to the councillor, Mike Field, Manager of Transportation Operations. The OTM Book 5 warrant does not include speeds. It's more about access control to intersections. So it's looking at turning movements, volumes of traffic, and other items that Director Ryle mentioned.
Thank you. I appreciate that insight. So in what situations would you be looking at speed evaluations? Is this when councillors request you to look at them, or as parts of other pieces in the OTM? Because I know, for instance, there's been some studies done in Ward 2 with respect to speeds, and so I'm curious to understand why they wouldn't have been done in this situation, even though they're not part of the requirement.
Through the chair to the councillor, there are a number of warrants that do require speed data. A lot of the traffic calming studies that we do that are based around dealing with speeding directly, we'll do speed studies, but for certain warrants, such as the always stop warrant or the stop control warrants, they don't involve the speed because it's not dealing with speeding issues. It's more about dealing with the function of an intersection. Traffic signal is another item that doesn't deal with speed measurement, may deal with the posted speed limit within the intersection, but not about speed measurement data. Speed limits signage, applications, some traffic calming and other features require speed data to warrant it. It's all based on how those warrants are constructed. And there's a variety of different information that's used, and it's really dependent on what that particular thing is. But sometimes speed data is used, other times it's not. And this is an example where speed data is not utilized.
Thanks very much for providing that clarity. I was secretly hoping that would be utilized, so I could just comment on that again. But when we look at near misses, which I think was what Councillor Jackson was speaking to when he said rollovers, how do we analyze that kind of information in the context of these safety decisions? So it's not a collision, and of course when you're looking at right-angled intersections and collisions intersections, this doesn't factor as part of the data you collect. So how do you evaluate those kinds of things when you make these decisions?
Through the chair to the councillor, in this instance, rollovers would be captured as collisions, and that information would be incorporated into the warrant based on the score and the type of collision, the way that they operated. Near misses in general are not included in warrant information simply because it's not a recorded instance. However, in recognition of that, we have utilized new technology recently with the evaluation of some intersections that essentially parks a camera over top of the intersection using AI technology, looks for near misses, and that helps us identify instances of near misses. But that's a new kind of emerging technology that's being used because, to your point that you're making, collision data is like waiting for until something's happened, as opposed to a near miss is looking for something that may happen.
Thanks. Last question for me is just about the threshold you'd have to hit to make the warrant successful in this situation, right? So I think that's really important and valuable for information for us to understand as a Public Works Committee is, how close to the warrant, how many rollovers and accidents at an intersection of this nature would need to occur before it was warranted.
Through the chair to the councillor, another great question. The warrants have an output of a score of a bunch of different factors. I can't speak to this one as far as how many of what would indicate or trigger over warrant or under warrant. It's dependent on the construction of the warrant that Ministry of Transportation created in the first place. But the more severity and the more instances of severe collisions, the higher the warrant score will output. Fatality being, the worst of the worst type of thing, outputting a very high score. So it's a variety of different factors, and they're weighted within the warrant as they're constructed. Not too sure if that answers your question, but it's dependent on the warrant and dependent on the function of the warrant and the items that it's evaluating within.
Thanks. Yeah, I really appreciated this. And sorry, Councillor Jackson, to ask so many questions about a motion I'm going to support. But I'm asking this because I think it's important for us to understand a little bit better about some of the issues we face when we're thinking about preventive safety measures and about the lack we have sometimes in being able to deal with those things with respect to the warrants that are, officially generated by the province. This thing with the technology of seeing near misses is great. And of course, I've made comments previously about this 85th percentile rule when it comes to speeding and how that's having a negative impact sometimes on getting warrants approved. So for me, it's important that we continue to have this conversation to figure out the balance, right, between how do we prevent and make sure that safety interventions are available before something bad happens, and trying to look outside these warrant rules wherever we can to make sure that safety improvements happen in existing neighborhoods. Thanks.
Right, thanks, Councillor. Seeing no further speakers to this, so we'll take the electronic vote now. 11.1, that vote is up. And that carries 13-0.
Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the committee. This will be an important message for the community that their civic engagement wasn't in vain. Sincerely, thank you.
11.2, private water service connection, 7030 20 Road East, Ward 11. Councillor Tattison, please introduce your notice of motion, and will you be seeking to suspend the rules? And I understand that Councillor Wang will be your seconder for this.
Yes, I'm going to put the motion forward to suspend the rules first.
Perfect.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wang, suspend rules of order to allow introduction of a motion respecting private water service connection to 7030 20 Road East in Ward 11, that the rules be suspended to allow for the introduction of the motion respecting the private water service connection. I'm asking it to be considered today because the report was on the floor last week, Easter Monday. kind of got a little bit messed up. Time got away from me. I missed submitting this by about an hour. So I'm asking for your flexibility so that we could see this. It has been in the minutes for a long time. Thank you.
Understood. Not seeing any speakers to this, so we'll have the electronic vote on waiving the rules. Votes up. And suspending the rules carries 13-0. Please introduce your motion, Counselor, and your seconder, please.
Thank you again. This is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wang. Private water service connection 7030 20 Road East in Ward 11. Whereas the City of Hamilton's municipal public water mains extend beyond the urban boundary along 20 Road East, Miles Road, and Dickinson Road East, having been originally installed in the 1980s to support anticipated growth. Whereas approximately 130 rural properties currently receive municipal water service from these public water mains, including 4 properties on 20 Road East at 775, 7055, 7049, and 7039 that were permitted to connect through a region-approved special water service agreement in 1992. Whereas the property owner of 7030 20 Road East, located approximately 600 meters south of the urban boundary and directly across from the 4 connected properties, has expressed a desire to connect to the municipal water system and is willing to bear all associated costs. And whereas the existing municipal water system has sufficient capacity to accommodate an additional connection. Therefore, be it resolved that staff from the Public Works and Planning and Economic Development Departments be directed to work with the property owner of 7030 20 Road East to facilitate a connection to the municipal water system in accordance with the current design standards and the City of Hamilton Waterworks Bylaw number 23-235, and that the property owner of 7030 20 Road East shall be responsible for all associated costs, including but not limited to design, installation, engineering fees and permits, required agreements and easements, and obtaining all required agreements to the satisfaction of the General Manager of Public Works and the General Manager of Planning and Economic Development. So if I may, when I think about issues like this, and when I think about the rural Hamilton official plan, I understand that these decisions are important and we don't want to risk any economic, environment, or social parameters. I understand that. So again, when we consider the rural Hamilton official plan and its official purpose, the RHOP actually states the following directions. And then I'll follow with some comments. Direction number 3. Protect rural areas for a viable rural economy, agricultural resources, environmentally sensitive recreation, and enjoyment of the rural landscape. Direction number 5, retain and attract jobs in Hamilton's strength areas and in targeted new sections. The rural economy, in particular agriculture and its related industries, is a major contributor to Hamilton's economic base. And direction number 8, protect ecological systems and improve air, land, and water quality. The environmental integrity of our ecological system is critical to the well-being of our residents and our economy. So your decision today, Council's decision, does not jeopardize rural and agriculture economy or enjoyment of the rural landscape. It has no impact on this rural community's ability to provide and attract jobs, and the requirements of the resident will require strict adherence to the technical aspects of our Public Works Department. It will pose no threat to air, land, and water quality. Today's decision is simply about allowing city water to go to a property directly across the road in a rural setting, across from homes where city water is connected already. It won't set a precedent. City councils have allowed such actions in other locations when it makes sense and when a resident is willing, or for the good of the community. All costs will be borne by the resident, and the upgrades required to be installed will actually improve the water delivery to the other houses on the street when it's connected. As a counselor, I don't see my role as a guardian of a blanket provincial policy and a very broad rural Hamilton official plan when the policy and the plan don't and can't consider every instance that comes forward when they were created. So I ask, what's the process when we want to do something that is beyond the scope of the rural plan, such as extending city water across a rural road? One way is what I'm doing here today, bringing a motion. That's the process. So I'm standing behind this motion because I've worked it through with staff, and staff has guaranteed protections are in place so this can happen without any consequences down the road. I'm not opening Pandora's box here. I'm simply asking that we allow water to come across the street to a nearby property. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Taddison. We've got a speakers list started here. First up is Councillor M. Wilson, followed by Councillor Kretsch. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the motion and the councillor's advocacy on behalf of the wish of a resident. However, my questions are not to diminish that, but it is to try and seek further clarity and address the statement just made by the member that this is without consequence. So if I may better understand the activity which would be sought and achieved in the motion, my apologies, I'm just going to it now. In A, through the chair, that staff of planning and public works be directed to work with the property owner to facilitate a connection. In working with the property owner, does that mean filing an OPA on behalf of the property owner? Or does it mean publicly negating the policy need for an OPA through the chair?
Who can take this one? Shane?
It's a planning question.
Okay, yeah,
Please.
hiding in the top corner there.
Through the chair to the councillor, the wording of the motion was intended to negate the requirement for the OPA, so that an OPA would not be required to be applied for.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, can I better understand then, as part of my role as a governor in due diligence, what are the implications of a municipality excusing an applicant from an OPA as set out in a requirement of our own policies? Through the chair.
I can try to take a crack at this. Acting General Manager Jackie Kennedy, through the chair. I believe the implications with this are that this has been done several times in the past, and it's following a similar process to that. And so that is perhaps why the wording is drafted as such and included as this, but I would invite Director McCauley or Manager Pham to add to that if appropriate. Thanks.
Respectfully, I understand it's been done in the past, and therein lies the challenge. Because it's done in the past, everything else becomes a reason or provides the threshold of permission. I'm trying to understand, which I think is my duty to do so, from a planning perspective, excusing an applicant from an OPA, I need to know whether this is going to come back to this body to bite me in 6 months from now, in 2 years from now, if another permission is sought or not sought. What are the planning implications of us excusing an applicant, whether it's be an individual or corporation, from this necessity as set out in our policy of requiring an OPA? Through the chair.
Through the chair, it is planning staff's opinion that an OPA should be required for these types of situations. This is the same position we have taken for some of the previous scenarios. So I know of several that have occurred in the past. There was one as late as 2020 in Binbrook for an extension to a business and a school. And at that time, staff had required an official plan amendment and recommended denial. And council had directed that the OPA be passed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm needing to be consistent with my votes, even though it was from a past council. In that case, I believe the school did not ask for it. There was no public health issue burning or present, and I voted against it because due process requires the applicant to file an OPA. If that's my time, I'm happy to go back on. I have other questions. Thank you.
Sure, we'll put you back on. Councillor Kretsch, you're up next, please, and then you can go on a second time if there's no other first-time speakers.
Thank you. I think I just have a few comments. I'm not going to support the motion. Just want to speak to why I'm not going to be doing that. I think Councillor Maureen Wilson got the questions answered I had, and the information report, which frankly was very thorough and I appreciate, was helpful in this. Look, if we have a process here for going through an official plan amendment, we should take that process. There's reasons why we have the process. It's just exactly the same reason I don't support, in almost any instance, us going around having a demolition permit happen around the building permit process. Some of these processes can be time-consuming. I get that some of them are tedious. They allow our staff to actually spend some time to dot the i's and cross the t's and ensure that things make sense, that they happen in a way that protects these things like the rural Hamilton official plan. And I will say, I respect Councillor Tattison's reading it out of some ideas there. But here's the thing. The plan is not doing any work. It's a piece of paper. The people who interpret that work aren't councillors. The people who do that work are professional staff. And they ought to have the time to look at the RHOP, look at other documents, look at the PPS, apply those to this, and make a decision that they think makes sense and make a recommendation they think makes sense. And frankly, they're asking for that. I know council's actioned these items in the past. I remember one specifically that was about bringing water to a gas station or something, and there was some conversation about bringing it to a school, which never actually happened. I'm not interested in continuing to have these one-off situations. The implication here is that this person will take care of the costs to install, but there will always be life cycle costs outside of that. There will always be implications for this situation as time wears on, and it's outside the urban boundary. Maybe that's uncomfortable or problematic because we have an urban boundary, but we have an urban boundary. Like, that's the boundary. Move the boundary or leave it alone. I understand that, again, there's been precedent here. This has happened in the past. I'm not going to support this, but I also don't think it's the end of the world if it happens, just to be clear. My vote is my vote. I'm going to say a no, but I appreciate where this is coming from. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alex Wilson, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, apologies, I think I'm missing maybe a more obvious detail in this. So is path one saying that this committee was intent on having this outcome happen through you, Chair? Path one is we, the committee, say, okay, we're going to make this tweak and use this process of a council motion. The other option would be the applicant through you applies for an OPA and it goes through the planning process. Like if this was the outcome and we are outcome focused, am I correct that there's two options on the table? And just wondering if staff could weigh in on that. And then this motion is kind of picking one of those paths, or is that ability to apply for an OPA not actually there because it's not compliant? I'm just trying to make sure that applying for an OPA is a valid option for the applicant.
That's a fair question, Councillor. I'll pass that over to staff here.
Yes, through the chair to the councillor. So those are, as stated, the two options. If an official plan amendment were to be applied for, based on the current policies, staff would be recommending denial of that application. However, at that point, council could choose to approve it if they so desired.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'll just, a quick comment from me is I'll just echo the previous two speakers. And I think if this came to us and it had been through the process, I think I'd be very open to hearing what the ward councillor is bringing forward and seeing if the local reality is reflected. I do struggle with allowing a business or an individual or a resident or whoever to skip a step of the process that we're then going to ask every other person to go through unless they're working, so I think from that process perspective, residing kind of with the previous two speakers, although again, I kind of want to go back to what Councillor Crutch said, which is this is water across the road. And while there are precedents and big impacts potentially to that, I do appreciate where the ward councillor is coming from and trying to make this simpler for the resident.
Thanks, Councillor. Next up, we've got Councillor Beattie.
Thank you. I just have a comment, so I don't know if we're doing comments or questions or we're doing them all at once.
You can do your comment. We've got Councillor M. Wilson as a second-time speaker next.
Okay, thank you, Chair, for the leeway. And I do appreciate the comments from some of my colleagues here as it pertains to the importance of process. I'm trying to not, I don't want to sound glib, but I think back to some of my own family experience. My grandfather sat on the Winona Water Board in the 1950s, and that was an organization that believed in the importance of providing drinking water, municipal drinking water, to a rural community. Winona in the 1950s was largely, if not 100%, considered rural. And so a hardworking group of individuals formed the Winona Water Board, and they arranged contracts with the neighboring municipality of North Grimsby to the east, and they arranged contracts with the E.D. Smith factory to the west. E.D. Smith factory has its own water supply that goes to Lake Ontario. They provide clean water to the E.D. Smith factory. And arrangements were made to actually purchase drinking water from E.D. Smith in North Grimsby and circulated that water into a local infrastructure that supported the rural area. And it was always seen to be of benefit for a rural community to have access to drinking water. I'm trying to imagine what my grandfather would think about the conversation around the table here in terms of the common sense approach would be it is across the street. And whether or not this sets precedent, I understand. I understand the importance of the reporting. I understand that the hard work that goes into from our staff. But sometimes it comes down to this body is just going to have to make a decision based on some practical elements and based on what is overall, I think, of most benefit to the community. And I go back to the signs that used to go up in Winona in the 1950s when a house had town water. That was a big deal to be able to. It was an advertising feature that people would put town water. And I think I'll continue to support that endeavor in our community.
Remember that from the 50s, do you, Councillor? Councillor Kassar, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Question to the mover, why? Why is this request here? There's specifics on others have done it, but why?
Councillor Tassyn?
Well, I think if you live on a road and your water source is highly containing iron and sulfur, it's just a better source of water from the city water. It's long-term. I'll say this. My dad says, if you can get city water, take it, because it's easier for the residents in the household. You don't have to buy salt, you don't have to buy all the machinery, you don't have to drill a well, you don't have to pay for cistern water, it's convenience. It's convenience, and it's also available. It's right there across the street. That is why. It's not like I'm asking it to go, again, a kilometer into the rural area, and it's going to compromise all the farms around. It's across the street from 4 homes that already have it, and it's going to improve their water quality because it's going to expand the pipe that's going to those 4 houses as well. That's why.
Okay, that's good. Second-time speakers, Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it does seem a bit tedious and extreme when we position something as we're just extending something across the road. But again, I'm going back to what I believe is my responsibility in understanding what may or may not be at hand if this permission is granted. So I've often thought to myself, my gosh, does the provincial policy statement say no to anything? Because it seems to be so broad for my period here. And alas, it does. So this horseshoe will have some serious discussions in the near future about the provincial policy statement and whether we will be seeking to line up behind that statement in our discussions about a firm urban boundary, whether we'll be seeking to line up behind discussions about a rural official plan and an urban official plan in our decisions. And so in this one instant where we're just extending across the street, as a governor, I need to thoroughly examine and assess whether a decision on this in seeking to waive those requirements presents any kind of risk to this municipality in its future discussions, which will, to my understanding, directly involve the PPS, the urban official plan, and the rural official plan. Through the chair. To planning staff, please.
Through the chair to the councillor, it has been staff's consistent approach and opinion to require an official plan amendment for any situations like this. I would say that potentially there is a risk if an approval is made for one property that we may get requests for similar types of extensions in the future. I think that would be a possibility, yes. Thank you.
So therein lies the knowledge which is uncomfortable and inconvenient, but it's on the table that we have some future very important decisions to be made that should be without an ability of the applicant's ability to pay. And we should be mindful of what, and again, this is not directed to discount Councillor Tattison's desire to advocate for work on behalf of, but it is the precedent that is set as we're furthering down the road on some very important discussions about planning policy, about infrastructure, and about precedents. And is with those risks in mind, and with those comments made by our planning staff, that is my responsibility to daylight and to adhere to. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Second time speaker, Councillor Tattison, please.
I respect all the comments that were given and the cautions that are being thrown out here. I just heard it say that the fear that we have is that requests for similar kinds of extensions might come, and that to me means like somebody on Dickinson Road might ask for water. So we've already made these concessions, so if someone's going to bring it up as a legal issue, it's already been brought up and it's already been passed and it's already been set. So this is no different than any of those. And I would hope that people, I think, and I hope everyone here understands the difference between urban boundary expansions and bringing water across the road to a house that is seeking to get city water. That's my final comments, and I'd like to call the question.
Well, thanks, Councillor Tattison. I have to let Councillor McMeekin go ahead here.
Yeah, thank you. First time speaker, I hesitate to enter the fray here, but the words uncomfortable and inconvenient have been used, and I think what's uncomfortable and inconvenient occasionally around this horseshoe is being tied to a process or a series of processes that on the surface just don't seem to make a hell of a lot of sense. You know, we've seen situations in rural communities where a house can be, have a contaminated well, and whatever goes with that, 40 feet away from a water source. And on a one-off basis, I'm okay if this situation repeats itself and we're asked to sensibly make a decision of doing something that on the surface looks like common sense. It's not in favor of the process, but that assumes that the process is always right, and we can't be open-minded enough to make some concessions when making a concession makes sense. And I think this is one of those cases, so I will support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor McMeekin. Not seeing any further speakers to this, so we will go to the electronic vote now. That vote is up on 11.2. That carries 9-4. Private and confidential, looking around to see if anyone needs to go into private and confidential for this item. Not seeing anyone. I think that would be, there being no further business, the meeting is adjourned at, sorry, I didn't know I had to approve that. My apologies. Receive it and remain confidential. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Beattie, Councillor McMeekin. Electronic vote or, yeah, electronic vote. And that carries 12-0. Now we can adjourn at 3:01 p.m. Thank you, everyone.